Ladies and gentlemen, it appears that Prydwen is back at it again with another tier list update, and thankfully it looks like the quality of the team has improved dramatically over the past couple of months, especially with the addition of Sweat to help out with things like rotations, really incorporate a lot of different mechanics into character kits, or not really incorporate mechanics into character kits, but talk about the mechanics in character kits and update a lot of things to get the website looking a lot more modern. That's the reason why I've been referencing it a lot more in my videos, because they're actually making the content better, and that deserves recognition, just like how Kuro Games has been making Wuthering Waves better every single patch. I give credit where it's due, and they've been making some good updates. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the actual changelog for version 2.0 and where characters have been shifting based off some new qualifications. So with that, Carlotta has been added to the tier list. The numbers and testing we've done shows that she's one of the best DPS characters in the game, who's also very easy to use. Go ahead and check out my guide on her that was uploaded the other day, as well as my first impressions of her and how building her was looking like on day one. She's a strong character, very easy to use, but is admittedly a little limited in her use cases. She's single target mainly, ladies and gentlemen. We got Jeja moving up to finally share the T0 spot with Sanhua. Already was argued that she was quite powerful due to her synergy with Jinsei, and now she's basically going to be meta based off the fact that she's the best in slot support for two tier 0 DPS characters. And so her not being in tier 0 despite supporting the best teams in the game would be a little bit suspicious. And so there's also a brand new jump cancel tech found by the theory crafting team that optimizes her and gives her a much shorter rotation. And so that means that she has a jump cancel tech now that speeds up her rotations. They were already pretty fast in the first place, and now they can get even faster and, improve the overall DPS of your teams. Encore has been buffed on the tier list, not actually in game. Apparently, after some further testing from the TC team, they're finding out that Encore's single target DPS matches Jiyan's, assuming he's not using his Qinglong cancels, I hope. And apparently, Jiyan has been present in the tier 0.5 tier above her. Both are able to be optimized, but also being more than playable in their best teams at a casual level. In either case, their single target DPS ends up matching as evenly as it gets. Interesting. Their only difference is that Encore is exclusively single target, while Jiyan has huge AoE capabilities. But that means Jiyan is stronger than her. Are they using the Qinglong tech? Are they using it? We'll see. In this logic, we're removing the expert tag on Encore and moving her up to tier 0.5. Her optimized single target DPS matches the characters in that tier, but we deem the tag unnecessary as it's not present on Jiyan. Guys, why did you just add the tag to Jiyan? What? So now we're removing the tag from Encore instead of adding it to Jiyan? Come on, guys. Just add the expert tag to Jiyan. People are messing up the Qinglong cancel all the time. And Encore's best team is actually quite easy to play at a casual level, where she still deals as much DPS as a casual level Jiyan, justifying her moving up. I'm a little bit interested in the reasoning here. So if they're both played at the optimal levels, who is better? I feel like I don't know after reading that. I just kind of heard that they're matching the entire time. I genuinely don't know who is better when they're both played at optimal levels at this point. Anyways, now we're moving on to Rover Havoc. After a bunch of optimization both to Havoc Rover and their best support, Dan Jin, we found out their DPS, even at a casual level, is certainly lagging behind the tier 0.5 characters. And so we might need to wait for their 6th sequence node for them to actually bump up in the tier so they can start running, like a bunch of crit damage, use a crit damage weapon, and use that built-in crit rate, right, to do a lot more of their teams. The higher DPS characters like Encore, Jiyan, and Zhang Liao, not as good as them. To reflect the big DPS increases our new discoveries caused Havoc Rover to have, remember that Dan Jin can use the new Havoc set that buffs the incoming Resonator, does damage, and, primarily only buffs Havoc. We're moving them up to tier 1 to accurately reflect the surprisingly impressive amount of damage they can deal. Keep in mind their position is still subject to change once we can acquire their last 3 sequences. I do believe you can acquire some of Havoc Rover's sequence nodes in this update. I'm not sure if we can get the 6th one. I've heard you can get the next 2, 4 and 5. So that should have a bigger impact, and we might see them shift this tier list in like a week for Havoc Rover to account for all of those upgrades. Next up, we've got Youhu. He's going down because, ladies and gentlemen, Youhu kind of sucks, okay? I'm gonna be honest, she's kind of bad. He buffs coordinated attacks. You wanna know what else buffs the coordinated attacks? The new set, and they buff it way better than she does. So with that, she's only being a good support option if you don't have Shorekeeper on your account, as pretty much every account should have Arita and Baiju by now. Lagging behind at least, it's very slightly in regards to all three generalist healer girls mentioned before, Shorekeeper, Verena, and Baija, she treads a fine line between remaining relevant and going completely under the radar. Like I mentioned before, she needs like a very special sort of DPS or sub DPS hybrid, whatever you want to call it based off this tier list, hybrid sub DPS that has coordinated attacks that also buffs basic attacks so that she can actually on field. Currently, her teams just feel really weird. They feel like they don't make a lot of sense. She's still not like awful, but her sequence nodes really focus on damage, right? But she doesn't really have somebody that buffs her damage that much. Next up, we've got Lumi. Guys, there's a reason why I didn't make a guide on Lumi, and that's because I thought that her character kit was kind of bad. Her specialty is buffing resonance skill damage. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a 10-second buff. She doesn't even work with Carlotta. That's why I didn't put her in the guide either, because she was potentially one of the biggest baits in gacha gaming for Carlotta. Her outro buff would expire before you're even able to do anything with her. And so with that, Prydwen obviously had the same thoughts. They were hesitant about placing her in tier 3 on release, but with further testing, we found she holds no realistic meta niche, and her meta utility is comparable to that of Tao Chi's. Honestly, Tao Chi is better than her at this point, because Tao Chi can at least buff Carlotta. We tried making some main DPS Lumi teams work, but they had and still have no commendable success whatsoever. RIP to whoever pulled her S6. You have kind of a bad character. Unfortunately, lagging behind pretty much every other option. She's being moved into the bottom tier to illustrate that. We'll see if she can increase her value with Carlotta's release. She won't. Like I mentioned before, ladies and gentlemen, her outro buff expires before Carlotta can release her final shot. What's the point? What's the point of using her if the most damaging part of Carlotta's kit, Fatal Finale, won't even get the outro skill buff, which is the best buff on the team? It's just pointless. So yeah, she can stay in tier 3. They've gone ahead and they moved Yanwu to the support category, as is really his only realistic use case was a budget option in Jinsei teams. Outside of that, he holds no niche in the meta, explaining his tier placement. As always, he's going to be Rejuvenating Glow in a 3-star Originite Onlet, as it's most optimal on him in the Jinsei teams, and he's pretty much more of a support than a hybrid. And they added some new tags. So with that, overall, the tier list updates, they all seem good to me. Moving up Encore, the whole Jiyan thing, I found this a little bit interesting here. Clearly, Jiyan has some optimal rotations, but I guess they do share the same single target damage. But as we've clearly seen, right, I'll always recommend that Jiyan be one of the top priority picks because of how good he does in AoE. And clearly, Prydwen made a mention of that, so I'm not too fussed up about this. And guys, tier 0.5 versus tier 0, they're all gonna clear endgame content if they're built. And it's not like an unbuilt version of these 3 characters is gonna do better than a built version of these ones. Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, just looking at some of the placements over here, yeah, so we just have Encore moving up. We have Jeja moving up. Support categories remaining entirely the same. Havoc Rovers moving up. There's nobody in tier 0 or tier 1.5 now. And then we kind of got like the boo-boo kids down here. Calcharo, Chisha, and Ling Yang. And we got Alto for... just put him back in hybrid. What is he doing here? Just move him. Move Alto back to hybrid because he has an arrow damage deepen as his outro buff. He's quite literally the definition of a hybrid. Move him into like tier 1.5 or tier 2. He's actually quite good in Jiyan teams. I'm gonna be honest. He's actually quite good in Jiyan teams. You guys should try him out. You guys should try him out with Jiyan's Qinglong cancels and some resonance skill cancels. You'll be heavily surprised by what he can provide. We got Lumi jumping down over here. Spectra Rovers still in support. I'm wondering where some of the new tags are. I might be... we got multi-roll, I guess, is the new tag. Multi-roll. Weird. I'm wondering where their new tags are. I don't really seem to be seeing any of them down here. But overall, not a lot of huge updates in this tier list update. Now, let's go ahead and see if Prydwen has finally done it.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
I've been checking this for the past couple of months, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
They did it. Ladies and gentlemen, they finally added Jinsei's weapon on Jiyan. I'm very impressed. Now let's go ahead and see if it's on Lumi as well. It's on her as well. I do believe that it actually had nothing in there. Looks like the Prydwen devs did in fact listen. So let's go ahead and see what their Camellya page is looking like. I'm really excited to see how much quality they put into the new character because I've heard some very great things about how they've worked on this page. Let's go ahead and look at the review. Has some AoE, but it's very long cooldowns. Best Echo set is almost exclusively used on her, and it brings a big damage increase. Well, is that such a bad thing? A great deal of her core ability damages are ranged. Incredible damage output when set up and buffed correctly. Easy, simple to use, and hard to mess up playstyle once you understand her kit. Very true. Do we really need to show this? Was this necessary? Okay, this seems like it gives like a pretty good rundown of her kit. That's a lot of words though. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Maybe she warrants the expert tag, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe she warrants the expert tag with this much text. But overall, pretty in-depth breakdown. I don't think we need to like dive into it too much. Let's go ahead and look into her gameplay and rotations. Nice. Prydwen, just take Lumi off of here, okay? Just take Lumi off. She does not work with Carlotta. She does not work with Carlotta at all. You're basically griefing in every single way possible. Just delete her from the F2P team. And please, please, please put in Yang Yang. Okay, please put in Yang Yang. You will be surprised by how good Yang Yang is in the Carlotta teams. I know she doesn't provide an outro skill buff, but Yang Yang is really good with Carlotta. Okay, we've done the testing. Your rotations are blazing fast with Yang Yang because she has almost no field time relative to these characters, and it actually works out really well with that Resonance Liberation energy buff that Yang Yang provides. S6 Yang Yang is very good, ladies and gentlemen. We are sleeping on that. I know she's relatively okay on your tier list. She should probably be higher with the increase of Carlotta. So definitely something for us to look into there and really improve it. Let's see what the rotation is looking like. Start with 30 substance, intro, blah, blah, blah. Generate 30. Okay. So, warm up. Use the skill 2 times. Perfect. That is the advanced rotation. That makes it all super easy to use. Skill. So basically you intro, you skill, use the mid-air attack, then use the forte heavy attack, unleash your ultimate, use 2 skills, echo, swap cancel it, and then outro buff. Yeah, that's the rotation that I use. This is what I believe is the optimal one at this point. I don't really think there's going to be a better one that comes out in the future, because Carlotta's a little bit like Jinsei, ladies and gentlemen. She kind of plays herself once you figure out what her rotation is. She literally kites the enemy as well during her liberation, and it's pretty easy to not cancel any of your shots either and just get off all of her damage, right? She's literally invulnerable when she casts her second resonance skill, and when she follows it with the echo skill, she gets the built-in 50% damage reduction. Yeah, nothing too crazy here. Yeah, good job, Prydwen. Damage output here, we're looking at the upgrades from her sequence nodes, blah, blah, blah. Nothing too crazy here. Yeah, I mean, overall, the only thing that we're missing on Carlotta's page is talking about how her S1 affects her rotations, because with her S1, you don't need to do any of this. You don't need to do the skill at the start, though you probably should. What I would like to see is a bit of a note added with this warm-up. Carlotta's resonance skill has kind of a long cooldown. It's like 14 seconds or something like that. 14 or 15. It's kind of long. And so if you have like an S2 Verena and a Yang Yang, you will rotate faster through that team than the cooldown of this ability. And so S1 Carlotta is actually a lot better in teams like Verena S2 and Yang Yang S6, where that team rotates so quickly that you can end up with the skill on cooldown by the time you intro in. And then you're basically going to be just like holding your dick for like, you know, a couple of seconds until your skill is back up and usable. So maybe adding a note on that, because a lot of people probably have S2 Verena right now and they might not have Jeja, and they're using a Yang Yang team. So I would just mention that in there somewhere to, you know, kind of shore up any holes that there might be in this guide. But overall, the Carlotta guide is looking good. The information here looks fine, and yeah, it's all looking pretty good to me. As you can see, the timing is super tight, 13.76 seconds. Jeja's outro buff lasts 14 seconds. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if an optimized Carlotta rotation takes 13.76 seconds and Lumi's outro skill buff lasts 10 seconds, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? You're going to lose Lumi's outro skill buff before you get off the rotation. So just don't even put her on here. You're gonna bait people into building this rat when she does absolutely nothing for Carlotta teams, or she does do something, but it's like it's worse than nothing, because that could have been resources you could have spent on any other character. Just put Yang Yang in here instead. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, the Prydwen tier list update is looking pretty good for today. I guess we've handled the whole issue with the Jiyan expert tag by not adding it to him, but simply removing it from Encore. So I guess that solves the issue, but I still want the expert tag on Jiyan, because ladies and gentlemen, Ladies and gentlemen, the double dragon rotation is very strong. It's very, very strong, okay? It's literally a 12% damage increase. I think a tech that increases your damage by 12% over the casual playstyle is significant enough to be worthy of the expert tag. I'm going to be honest. But yeah, that's the hill that I will be dying on for today. Let me know what you all think. Peace out.